So this is about Shintoism. Um, so first off, Shintoism is considered to be the majority religion in Japan. However, if you look into it, it kind of falls under the category of religion, but mostly just falls under the category of respectful living. Um, and a lot of people say that all religion is a lifestyle. Um, yes and no, because like even with the Buddhist monks, we saw that not everybody will walk the path of their religion as they're supposed to. So the fact that over 80% of Japan is known as being incredibly respectful, friendly, polite, all this shows that they truly do actually live their belief system. Um, but Shintoism started off with two deities. There's um, there's a, a Kasimaru who created, for lack of a better sense, the other kami. And I thought that was really cool because if you've ever seen the anime Naruto, then that's the name of the flame that Itachi uses. That's what his Sharingan provides is a flame that's so hot that it can burn through anything. And it's named after the sun deity, which I thought was actually pretty awesome. Um, but there's a lot of similarities that you'll notice between like Shintoism and like ancient Greek mythology and whatnot. One of the biggest ones is Akatsumaru went into hell, like their version of hell. They don't call it hell because it's not really like hell like you would think of as in the Christian perspective or the Mormon perspective or the Catholic perspective. Any Judeo-Christian religion, um, they depict it as like these flames and stuff like that. But both Shintoism and Greek mythology would say that hell's a pathway, and there's this boat dude and or female, and they carry you across this river, and then you enter into the underworld. Um, the reason that I brought that up is because a very well-known Greek mythology story was about this lyre player, and he actually traveled into the depths of hell to convince Hades to give him his wife back because his wife had died. And on a similar note, in Shintoism, a very similar thing happened. The other kami died, I think, because apparently kami can die in this religion, which is awesome because it makes them very human, ironically. But she dies and she gets put in the underworld, and he travels into the underworld to get her spirit back. And he fails, just like everybody else that's ever tried to go into the underworld. You can get there. You might be able to convince them, but you can't fight your own human nature when going out. Which again I thought was ironic because they're kami or gods. Um, so after he got out of the underworld, he went into a river and he washed his eyes and his nose and his mouth. And when he did this, more kami were born from his eyes, his nose, his mouth. I think one of them was formed out of his spit. But that just it started it all, and through these kami, humans came around or something. That one's kind of iffy on the translation. I'm not 100% sure I fully comprehend that aspect myself. But they do believe that through your deeds or through the way of your living, you can become a kami yourself. You can become a god. Like, there's a few examples of individuals that became god. There's the kami of academia, which a lot of times students will pray to get higher grades in class. He got his kami hood title thing by being smarter than everybody else. Like, he was so studious that he became a god of academics. And then there's also another one that was a human that became a god, was Benki. Benki was a samurai, and he was in this village, and like they're like, oh my god, there's like a horde of evil demons, ah! And Benki's like, don't worry, I'll kill them all. And there's like 1,000 of them. They're probably more like 100, but some texts say 1,000, some texts say 100. Either way, dude charges a hill solo, slashing and cutting his way to the top. He takes 7 to 9 arrows, gets to the top, decapitates the general, then dies standing up. He became a kami of war, which is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Like, even if it's just a legend, there's other stories about him that say that he was a wanderer and he was a nobleman that gave up his riches, and he became a kami of travelers. But regardless, he is definitely a kami. He might be dual wielding kamihood. I think about it. So what does this say? It says humans can become gods, gods can die, and water purified after the trip to hell, which is why water is such a very big part of Shintoism, Buddhism, ekata. You cleanse yourself. You start off with your left hand, your right hand. You clean your palms, then the backs of your hands. One, 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 one. Then you clean your face and you rinse your mouth out. This is so that way whenever you go before the kami, you are clean. You're purified. Which I thought was really funny because they didn't bother to not just outright say wash your mouth out because we don't want you lying to the gods. Which is hilarious. Like, totally awesome. Which also brings into account why bathhouses are so important in Japanese culture. In ancient times, you would go to the bathhouse for important political meetings so that way people wouldn't assassinate you. In the bathhouse, they would see this as you're naked, which means that you're clean. You're honest. Because apparently it's really hard to lie with no clothes on. My ex had no problem with this, but apparently it's hard. But that is a huge example of why bathhouses were such a big cultural thing. It was very much rooted with Shintoism, and you'll notice that, like, in a lot of our modern day culture, you'll notice little hints and signs of Shintoism and even Buddhism in our everyday life, in our everyday TV shows, and you don't realize it until you open up your eyes and you see it. One of the most common things that you associate Shintoism with is the torii gates, and there's a really fun legend that about the torii gates. This could just be like scary story or whatever, but to scare kids. That's what I meant to say. But there's a torii gate, and if you go through this torii gate and your spirit is unclean, when you go through it, it's outside of a train station, and if you go through it unclean, and you'll still go through the gate, but instead of being in this realm, you'll be in the realm of the yokai, and you'll never make it home. So like there's like some scary stories with them. There's also like a slightly demented religious aspect of it, such as it used to be okay to take your elderly into the woods and just kind of like leave them there to die. Like, okay, I'm done taking care of you now. Bye. Um, and it was considered to be culturally okay because you don't want to be a burden on society. So I kind of wonder how that Shintoism created that, but they don't do it anymore. Although there is an entire forest which was originally dedicated to taking the elderly to go and let them go die. This is now called Ohigakara Forest, which a lot of people know as the Haunted Forest. But what the forest actually, or what the name Ohigakara actually means, is the forest or the sea of trees. Because if you look out of Mount Fuji onto Ohigakara Forest, it looks like you're looking out onto a sea of trees.